What's going on, Falcon fan? This is your boy Ricondo. Come back at you with another video. So today we're gonna talk about what our GM and Ian Cunningham had to say about the moves that they have made this week and what the whole strategy behind it, the idea of the moves they made. And going forward, getting ready for the draft. Continuing making moves here in free agency, which they already have after his press conference we had today. We'll talk about some additions to the team. We also will talk about the quarterback competition, which is really the elephant in the room, one of the big deals. And then once again, we'll end the show with um, a James Pierce Jr. update. We have some more information about that and what that means about his playing career here in Atlanta. So those are the things we're going to get into today, guys. And I hope you are here. Happy Friday. Um, Definitely happy to see you guys come in. It's Friday, it's the weekend, but I had to get on here because Atlanta Falcons still working, and I want to talk about it because this is one of the exciting times of the year, especially for a new um, regime coming in. You expect to see a lot of changes, and that's definitely what we have seen from the Atlanta Falcons so far. A lot of guys are not, with this team anymore, and we're gonna have a lot of new faces, and so expect differences this year. And we'll see what happens with this team. I came on here the other day and I said, with the moves, look like the Atlanta Falcons looking towards the future, but maybe I kind of spoke too fast, and we'll see what happens with this team and see can they move forward. But guys, with that being said, if you have not already, go ahead and please subscribe to the channel. Please hit that notification bell so you know I drop another video. Please hit the like buttons. I know you guys are here to talk about. Then please share my video throughout the YouTube universe so more people can come hear me talk about. That's right, these Atlanta Falcons. So here we go, guys. Um, the first topic we talk today, we're going to talk about, like I said, we actually heard from our GM today. He actually had a press conference to talk about some of the moves that have been made over the past week. Their whole strategy behind it. One of the first things he said was they had an idea, a plan is to come to elevate the floor, right? So looking at this team, and we all had said that this team had potential to be a playoff team. It just needed time to actually come in and make sure that they started doing things around the margins, right? Those when you hear me talk last year during the season, I talk about Atlanta Falcons actually making plays around the margin. Um, the situational football thing that what happens, right? We can go pinpoint certain things throughout the season, the 2025 season, and figure out why the Atlanta Falcons wasn't successful as they needed, right? One of the things were the depth on the team, right? You look at when Divine Diablo go down, um, that really hurt the Atlanta Falcons. They played JD Bertrand. I think most of us, when we saw JD Bertrand play, um, you know, barely a special teams player, but you had him out there starting games, and it really shone on the field because you didn't have depth at that linebacker position. Well, you see with the moves that the Atlanta Falcons have made this offseason, you see they're trying to create the depth, right? I think one of the things that really interesting about this Atlanta Falcons free agency class is they didn't have any like big splashes, right? If you go back to the Terry Fontenot regime, they always had like one or two big splashes, during that time frame. They bring in a guy like Jesse Bates, right? That's a big steal. Last year they made a trade. The year before last, they made a trade, right? At the end, they brought in, big name safety, big name pass rusher. That didn't pan out for us as well. But this year, they actually went a different route, right? And they brought in a lot of players. Um, at this point in time, I think it's 13 new players that they brought in. Of course, they actually signed other players as well. So this is when you looking at the moves that they made, right? It's like adding to that nucleus that the Atlanta Falcons already had, right? And the nucleus I'm talking about, on the defensive side of the ball, you're talking about Jesse Bates, um, Xavier Watts, Billy Bowman. You talking about AJ Terrell. You talking about Brandon Dorless, Ruko Roro. You talking about Zach Harrison, right? You talking about those groups. You talking about Dugan Diablo. Um, you talking about Jalen Walker, maybe James Pierce Jr. So that's the nucleus that they had, right? And you take that nucleus, which all those guys I just mentioned was really really productive last year, right? But then you add pieces to it. Now we talked about some of the guys we lost that was productive as well, like a David Amiyana, like a Kate Nellis, like a D Alford, right? We lost all those guys on the defense side of the ball. And we also just lost Army Ebiketie as well, another guy that played significant roles for the Atlanta Falcons. So all those guys that when you look at what the Atlanta Falcons lost, right? But you bring in depth in a lot of those positions and what the Atlanta Falcons have been able to do, you really, really like you know, adding to what Ian Cunningham called is the floor, right? How they did this, they was really, really connected with their coaches, their scouts, and their analytical guys, right? You use analytics and based off analytics because believe it or not, analytics is starting to come into play when these teams start to evaluate players, right? But it's more of a, you know, see if it matched the ideal of what you're thinking about when you think about a player, right? But Ian Cunningham said these guys is something, especially on the defensive side of the ball, is what Jeff Albrecht was really looking at and what he wanted to say that he could utilize these players, right? Right. Interesting thing about all these players, none of these guys was like so-called big starters at their previous teams, right? But they have the potential to be starters. And when you're looking at, you want these guys to come in on these one-year deals with chips on their shoulder and feel like they have something to prove, right? That's what you're hoping when you bring guys in on these one-year deals. That's what you're looking at, right? You want to bring in competition, big time. We're going to talk about the quarterback competition in just a minute, but you want to bring in competition, and then you want to bring in right when you do have an injury, like I mentioned last year when Deion Diablo went down. You want to have people that can come in and you feel like more settled to play their role, as a backup instead of having a big fall off like they had at the line acquisition last year because it was a big drop off. So, um, you know, he talked about positions that they have not addressed yet, like the running back position. Still might be able to bring somebody in the free agency, but he did mention there are a lot of players, a lot of running backs in the draft, so definitely going to be able to address that need. Mention the trenches. We know one of the things that all three of those guys talked about when they came in from the front office talked about building through the trenches, right? Um, and we're going to talk about another addition to the defensive line in just a minute, but being able to add players to the trenches as well, being able to do some of the things we talked about. We know one of the big issues that Atlanta Falcons had last year on the defense front was being able to stop the run. Right, they're addressing that, right, and you feel like they're probably going to make dress it a little bit more within the draft as well. So this is just the start. This is just beginning. I know one of the things he said, he's not complete, and he started to get antsy, but he realized it's just March, right? So you got 6 months, to build this team out like you really want it, right? Get an idea about what kind of team this could be. They'll start ramped up here in April next month, to start implementing their teams and things right there, doing all the installs for the offense, and the defense. One good thing about the defense this time is it's going into his second year. All these other guys, new guys, got to come get in, and get in tune to what the Atlanta Falcons want to do from the defensive side of the ball. But I think more than anything this year, when you're looking at defensive side of the ball, I feel like Jeff Albrecht got more of the kind of players because he had a really big collaboration with the front office, being able to bring in players. And you listen to Ian Cunningham, that's one of the main things he said. He wanted to make sure that he was bringing in players that align with what the coaches felt like they can be able to do with the players, right? That's really what it is, right? You as a front office, you want to that be that guy that get all the ingredients, get the recipes and stuff like that, but then you're gonna let the other guys go out and cook, right? They able to cook with the ingredients they got, right? Because that's what they say they needed This is the kind of guy I want. This is a guy I know how I can utilize him, right? We know Jeff Albrecht. If you listen to him, he like guys with long arms, right? Being able to be rangy, go sideline to sideline, and that's what he got on a lot of positions. You look at what he got. So look at some of these comments, right? Before we get too far down the road. Eddie says, "You mean talk about Ian Cunningham? Uh, what's going on, T Terry, man? GM has no reason to say it's going to be a quarterback competition. That should be the head coach voice. I'm just saying, sounds like the GM is trying to run the coaches too. My thoughts only. We don't have to have a controversy about this, right? He was asked a question, all right, and he could have said, "I'm gonna direct that to the head coach," but if he already talked to the head coach and they already all on the same page, he could just reiterate what the head coach is already probably going to say. So, like, you can make it a bigger deal you want to, but if they all on the same page, and he said that Kevin Stefanski had a conversation with Michael Penix, so it's not like it's something that's is breaking news. They had already mentioned this from a national media standpoint, so I don't think it was that big of a deal that the GM mentioned that he was asked that question. Um, Shout out to Lynn Howe. Make sure I hope that you this situation that you have with cancer, that you're being able to get the help you need, the care you need, the treatment that you need, and things like that. We talk about cancer. This is one of those bad words that floated around, and sometimes if you catch it in time and things like that, um, you definitely can recover on time. So many different medicines out there and stuff like that. So, you know, um, best of luck to you. Like I said, hopefully you get the care you need. We're gonna shout out to Lemon Howe. Eddie says, "I'm glad you mentioned JPJ. He is the truth and the pass rusher pressure in the season. Yeah, Eddie, you like guys that commit domestic violence on people. I'm starting to tell, but you keep mentioning James Pierre Jr. But we're gonna talk about him at the end of the show. Ian Cunningham is looking like he's going to be the next great GM in the NFL. Yeah, I think he has a really solid plan, but hey, we got to find out, right? We can't put that label on him just yet. He just got here, right? And they haven't even played one game yet. So we're going to see. You like the plan that, it seems like he does have a plan that came in that they formulated, but, you know, actions always going to speak more than what they do during the off season. So we'll see how it pans out for these guys. 1 year deals just in place to holder until they can get their future guys from the draft and the undrafted free agent place to develop. Most of them just signed because they're going to get a paycheck. Dude, when you get an opportunity to play in the NFL, you can say they just get a paycheck, but you get an opportunity and you show up during your opportunity, you make the teams. That's why when guys get drafted in the seventh round and undrafted guys get an opportunity, you look at a guy like D. Alford that was here for 4 seasons for Atlanta Falcons, undrafted guy gets an opportunity. So it don't matter where you get picked, how many years you sign. Once you get an opportunity to get on the field, you compete and you beat out these other guys, you're gonna get your chance to play. That's why sports is why people love sports so more, because especially it's all about they're gonna play the best guys, right? You're trying to win, right? Sometimes money comes into place and things like that, but a lot of times um, you think about it, the best player most usually win out, right? Go back to, and I love to use examples, right? You go back to when the Seattle Seahawks signed Matt Flynn, right? He was going to be their starter, but they drafted Russell Wilson, and what happened? Russell Wilson beat him out in camp, and we haven't heard from Matt Flynn since, right? You look at the GOAT, Tom Brady, right? Gets hurt, Drew Bledsoe get hurt, and the rest is history, right? The best player usually gets their opportunity. Once you get an opportunity to get on the field, you make the best of your opportunity. That's how you go. So don't matter if you come in as a number one pick, a 7 round pick, an undrafted guy, your opportunity when you get on that field. And so it don't matter that you saying they come in just for a paycheck. They come out and play hard and uplift, do the best in the opportunity. They could stick with this team for a long time. And that's what you got to look at, and that's what you got to believe as a player, right? A lot of players we heard, that's their mindset when they're coming in. They're coming in to prove that they can be more than what they was at their last stop. Trust me, I know what was discussed. It don't matter what you know. I don't have no inside stuff. We're gonna find out, right? Everything can be discussed, but when they put on pads and they play, it changes everything. That's what it really boils down to. Uh, you said let's not go there because James Purdy is a freak of nature. Leave a man alone. He's a hell of a player. I'm not talking about football. I don't care what he did on the football field. Don't care what he did on the football field. Just because you're a hell of a player, you can't go out and kill nobody. So you can stop trying to talk about football. I'm not talking about football right now. I'm talking about him as a person. So that's what it really boils down to, right? And at the end of the day, that's what it's gonna be about. He played great this year, but that don't take away from him doing stupid shit off the field. And that's what it's all about. Right, you can't just go out and do some dumb shit and be like, well, I got 10.5 sacks, so it don't matter. And that's where you have to look at it. So that's what I mean, right? Um, those guys going to play, but you're twisting what I'm saying. Nah, no, 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 no. You said they come in and just get a paycheck. That's what you said. That's what you said. You said they come in just to get a paycheck. So, and that's what I mean. That's all I'm saying. All right. All right, let's go to some of the players that we didn't talk about that they have added since the last time I was on, right? And it's only a couple of about 3 players that they have added here, right? They added two players on the defensive side of the ball. Um, Today they announced that they signed defensive lineman Deshaun Hand to a $3 million contract, right? This guy it plays perfect. If you go back and look at his tape, he plays perfect what Nate Ali wants to do. Somebody that's going to one gap read and goes up the field, make disruption in the backfield. That's what you want. That's the textile defense. That's what Nate Ali teaches. That's what this guy is really, really good at, right? A good run stopper, somebody that can actually, do some really, really competitive things. So that's what I'm saying uh, uh, about Deshaun Hand, right? We talked about the trenches, right? You're adding Deshaun Hand to guys with other guys, rural. They actually brought back Lakel London as well, guy who had 4.5 sacks for the Atlanta Falcons last year. A guy that was, guess what, was on the practice squad. That was an undrafted guy that has really made really, really, really big strides in his tenure with the Atlanta Falcons. Been here a couple of years and now actually signed a contract with the team that was really, really you know tremendous for the Atlanta Falcons last year. So 4.5 sacks coming in. You really like what he's saying with Lakel London. So the other guy that they brought in was Samson Ibukun, right? This guy in 2023 had 9.5 sacks. Actually tore his Achilles in 2024. Came back last year, only had 2 sacks, but 1 year removed, another year removed from that Achilles tear. This guy, this is a really, really big deal where you can have a really boom here, right? Low cost, high reward type signing. A guy that you saw his traits, like I said, 2 seasons ago. However, he took it towards Achilles, coming back, trying to prove himself, put himself on a 1 year deal. Right, this is the insurance you get in the pass rush when you get a guy like Ibukam. Because if you get a guy, if he's can do anything like he did back in 2023, this is going to be huge for him, right? That's really going to be huge for what um for the Atlanta Falcons because you get a good value deal. Somebody that has recorded 9.5 sacks. You know, took an injury, had to come back off injury, and now it's time to him see can he get back to his form where he was before. Another guy that I love playing on the edge because he's able to set the edge a lot, but he has the speed as well to be able to run sideline to sideline. So this is a really nice signing. Like I said, low risk, high reward type signing. Um, Atlanta Falcons really don't have nothing to lose, and you look at a lot of these signings that they had. If they can give you anything, more than what we've seen last year. That's what he's saying, raising the floor, right? Because a lot of these guys are not to be expected to be starters and things like that. But when they do get on the field, they can contribute any way. That's really a good thing for the Atlanta Falcons. So that's what I'm talking about when you talk about Ibuakon, right? So Deshaun Hand and Ibuakon on defense. Of course, like I said, they brought back Lakel London as well, somebody that was here last year. Then on the offense side of the ball, they brought in center Corey Levin, guy who's been in the league probably like 8 or 9 years. One of his main thing was coming in, had really really good familiarity with Bill Callahan. We only had one center on the roster, so we really had to do this. But Corey Levin can actually play all the positions. Even last year, he mentioned that he actually lined up at fullback, at one time. So he has a lot of versatility. This is the kind of offensive line you bring in that's really going to help the Atlanta Falcons, right? We lost a couple of offensive line. We're going to talk about those two guys today. But this is creating that depth, right? Building through the trenches. You want to see that. So Corey Levin is huge for the Atlanta Falcons, bringing him in, right? So that's really really good, right? Those are the guys that we did have not talked about yet. I said if you look at all the new guys that came in, I think the number now is 11, right? 11 new faces in here, right? So they always say the team that you had last year will definitely not be the team this year. But you look at all the guys they bring in, Cameron Thomas, Olamide Zaccheaus, Austin Hooper, um, Christian Williams, Christian Harris, um, picking that name up, but Jahan Dotson, Channing Tindall, um, Corey Levin, Deshaun Hand, Samson Ibuakon. I know I forgot one. Just can't remember who it is, right? Um, but I might have got all of them. I wasn't counting, so but that's good, right? All those different guys come in, brought back Troy Anderson, right? Somebody that has so much potential, just can't stay healthy to see him on the field. So that's been a big deal as well. So those are some of the guys that, but we'll see what the Atlanta Falcons, continue to add from a free agent standpoint and what they add in the draft, right? So we're gonna take a look at all those, and we'll get to about the July time frame when we're going into mandatory minicamp, and we will actually see kind of formulation of this team, right? That 90-man squad, right? And one thing about the whole 90-man squad, right? That's where it really gets interesting because you start talking about competition, right? And that's what it is. He said, "Nah, I know I missed a couple. I don't know who I missed though. I can't remember. We'll see. Oh, I missed the kickers. I missed both. I missed special team guys. I missed Jake Bailey and Nick Folk. That's the only guys I missed, right? Oh, and I missed Tool, of course, right? I missed Tool, so I missed three. I missed the kicker, Jake Bailey. I missed Nick Folk, and I missed Tua Tungo Aloa. I think I got everybody else though, man. So that's awesome, right? That's awesome. And yep. Oh, I forgot Aziz Ojulore. Sorry, I sure did. T Terry. I miss Aziz. I can't believe I missed another Bulldog too. Damn shame. So man, that even make it better when I talking about a bull clan, right? You bring in a bull clan, you bring in Aziz, right? To go along with Jalen Walker, go along with Braylon Trice, right? Man, I like that. I like that. I like that. I forgot about Aziz, right? Man, that even make me more excited. Especially if the other young man come back. That if I mean, just imagine adding him back to the fold as well. That pass rush might be even more deadly than it was last year. So, yep. Thank you, man. Thank y'all for keeping me honest because I miss names. But I was trying to do it off the dome, which means I've been keeping track, right? Because a lot of people have to read. I was trying to do it right off the dome though, so that's what I'm talking about. all right, all right, freaking let's get into the quarterback competition, guys. Right? Um, like I said today, it was reported. It was actually reported. Um, yeah, he said it's about the depth. Eddie says it's all about the depth this year. Yeah, man, it's going to be what they can do, right? Because they didn't really add no like starter to this free agency, right? They didn't add a guy that come in and be like you're going to be the starter. They didn't do that. So it's about the depth, right? They had the nucleus. They still had a nucleus here, but they didn't add like a bona fide, you know, day one starter to this free agency class. But they added to the floor, like Ian Cunningham said, they added a lot of depth. So that's just where these guys, what I talked about earlier, these guys going to get opportunity to prove that they could potentially can be a starter. We'll see, but they got to compete with undrafted free agents. They're gonna have to compete also with draftees. So it's a long way to go, man. It's March, so we'll definitely be able to see how this thing turn out for these guys. Um, I mean, last year you think about it, we signed a free agent, um, Morgan Fox, right? We signed him as a free agent deal, and guess what? He got cut. He didn't make the team because in training camp he got beat out. So, so just because you signed in free agency doesn't mean that's what I mean by the competition opportunities, right? Those undrafted guys that we bring in, right? Now the draftees usually make the team, right? You really don't want to cut your draft guys, but man, these free agents be signed, especially the free agents signed to these 1 year deals, they get beat out by one of your young players, draftees or undrafted guys, but they wanted this opportunity. They understood what it was to come in and sign a 1 year deal. It's about coming in and trying to prove yourself. So we'll see how it pans out. Okay, let's get to the quarterback competition. So, like I said, it was reported before when Tua first signed, agreed to the deal. The NFL Network posted, stated that Kevin Stefanski had already talked to Michael Penix. He talked to him before they announced it, and he was to his understanding that he was going to have to compete, right, um, for this position. Right now, you can look at it a lot of ways, right? You can look at it and be like, that could be unfair to Michael Penix Jr. Um, you know, the biggest things you have to ask when you think about things like that is the fact that this new regime did not draft him, right? So they don't have no, alliance to him and saying that, yeah, he the guy we believe in 100%, and he's going to be our guy, right? But they are going to give him opportunity, right? But the fact that he was injured, I think that played a bigger role than what a lot of people may think about this situation, because they had no choice but to bring in a quarterback, right? We all knew this. This was not a secret. He was the only one in the quarterback room, so they had to bring in a quarterback, right? Just to question, which quarterback it was and what that was going to mean for him. So that's where it really boils down to. But I think the fact that he was injured played a bigger role than because I think if he was 100% healthy, maybe they looked at it different. Not saying they would have, but maybe they did. Right? Like I said, we don't know how. Really, let's be honest, we don't know how much this new regime actually believe in Michael Penix. They said all the right words, but do they really believe in him? We don't know. Um, So, coming in and have a quarterback competition, and it's the same for Tua Tagovailoa, right? He has to compete as well. All right. So that's the negative side for looking at from Michael Penix standpoint. First he got to get healthy. Now he got to come into a quarterback situation. And unfortunately for him, since he been, you know, with the Atlanta Falcons, he's never been like just the guy by himself, right? So he's coming back to that situation again. But right, competition is healthy. I just talked about it with all the other positions. So being able to have these competitions is really gonna be healthy. All right. Um, so let's talk about Tua though, right? Now, this is the facts about Tua, right? First fact is he did, like, people thought he needed to retire, right? Because he had two really bad concussions, right? Where he actually went into, you know, little moment there he had on the field, and everybody was like, "Man, that looks scary. He probably need to retire," right? Um, but that was a couple of years ago. He was completely healthy last year. But the fact of the matter is, people assume that the Atlanta Falcons are getting a losing quarterback, and that's really not the case with Tua. His record um, is 44-32. He's 12 games over 500 for his career. He got 120 touchdowns to only 59 interceptions, right? And he actually led the league in completion percentage in 2024, right? He had the number one offense in 2023. All these things are facts. So this is who Michael Penix is competing with, a guy that's actually been proven, to have success in the NFL, right? With the caveat that he has had injury issues that really is could be his downfall, right? Now, for him to be able to work um to his best abilities, he's gonna have to be upright, right? You have to have really good protection for him. But he's one of the most accurate quarterbacks, right? He has a 69.9 completion percentage for his career, right? So this guy is accurate with the ball, right? 120 touchdowns to 59 interceptions mean he doesn't like turnover ball a lot, right? So this is what Michael Penix is going up against. It's just to be honest. Like, I'm trying to be honest with you, right? I think Michael Penix's ceiling is higher than Tua Tagovailoa, but Tua Tagovailoa is coming in with the upper hand, right? One of one of the reasons is because Michael Penix is hurt, right? So April 7th, when they started to do OTAs and started to get into the playbook and stuff, Tua is going to be on the field. Michael Penix is still going to be in recovery, right? Now, he still can get a playbook and he can do mental reps and things like that, but to be on the field and stuff, so he's going to start off behind, right? I'm just being honest about the whole situation um, with Michael Penix Jr. So that's really how this quarterback competition going to go. Um, I do believe he's going to get his opportunity. I think he's going to compete because Michael Penix has traits Tua do not have, right? I think he's more athletic than Tua, right? We know he has a bigger arm than Tua, but playing in a rhythm offense and being able to throw on timing and accuracy, that's what Tua probably shines more right now than Michael Penix do. So it's gonna be interesting to see how this pan out. I think one of the things you can think about though, due to Tua Tagovailoa injury history, even if he does beat Michael Penix out, um, being a starter by default, right? Because I think Michael Penix is playing catch up more than anything. It's like they're not starting off the race at the same time. It's just not because he's injured. Tua is healthy, Michael Penix is injured, so they're not starting the race off at the same time. And I think that's going to hurt Michael Penix more, especially when you're looking at a proven quarterback, the Atlanta Falcons coming in. That's why when I talked about his success that he has had, when you get him for $1.3 million, this is a low risk, high reward, move for the Atlanta Falcons because this guy is not a loser, right? You can say what you want to say. 44 and 32. That's a winning percentage. That's 12 games over 500. That's not a loser. And they don't have some bad seasons in Miami. And still to be over 12 games over 500 says about he had more good than bad there. That's what it says. That's what it says. Even with all the injury and all that stuff, he had more good than bad. So um, that's really what um, Michael Penix is going to be faced with, right? One thing about Michael Penix, he has had a lot of stuff he had to deal with throughout his, his young career. Including college and stuff like that. All the injuries he have came back from. You look at all the programs he had been to. He has been to uplift those programs to make them better. He had Indiana, winning before Mendoza did, right? He did. Then he took an injury, right? And Indiana is a basketball school, right? It really never been known for a football school. So, but Michael Penix had those guys winning, a couple of years ago before he's transferred to University of Washington. So, I think they won like 9 games one season with him. Took an injury, right? It's the setbacks for him. It just unfortunately his injury history, and once again, his injury history is going to put him a little bit behind the power curve, where he's going to have to compete and make his way back, right? And that's the way it is. I think Tua has the upper hand right now because he's healthy, and that's where it's going to start. But they had no choice but to bring in a quarterback to in this quarterback room, right? I know a lot of people saying, well, why they had to bring in a guy to compete with Michael Penix, because a lot of people want to see Michael Penix succeed, including myself. But the Atlanta Falcons got to do what's right for the organization as well. They had to bring quarterback in, and then if you can get a quarterback, like I said, a quarterback that has had success in the NFL, and you can bring it in for $1.3 million, that really aligns up to your philosophy, your backup, both left-handed quarterbacks. Um, you can actually build your offense a certain way how you really want to build it. And so when Penix come in, you don't have to change a lot, right? It's just so much upside to the decision to bring him in, and the competition is just something else that needs to be happening, right? It's going to be something that it's going to be talked about all season long, but let's see how it pans out, man. Let's see how it pans out. Tua's he's not new to this, right? Um, you guys remember in college, right? He backed up Jalen Hurts, right? In the famous 2017 national championship game where Jalen Hurts is benched, Tua Tagovailoa come in, and what happens? He beats the Georgia Bulldogs, right? And then the next following season, Tua is starting, Jalen Hurts is backing him up, right? And then in I think it was an AOC, the SEC championship game, he get benched for Jalen Hurts, and Jalen Hurts come in. Guess what? Beat the Georgia Bulldogs, right? So, um, so he's really well versed in the whole quarterback thing, situations going back and forth and things like that, right? Michael Penix is used to it. Had to deal with Kirk Cousins for the last 2 seasons. Just another veteran to come in that he got to compete with, which is makes people better. I think they say iron sharpen iron. That's what's going to be happening here in this quarterback competition. So I always, if you guys know me, if you've been watching my channel for the years that I've been talking about these Atlanta Falcons, is that I'm always a guy with a glass half full instead of half. I don't look at it negative, right? I don't look at stuff negatively. I look at stuff from a positive light. That's what I always do, right? That's really the only way you can be, a fanatic and a fan, especially of our Atlanta Falcons. You gotta look at the positive stuff, right? Because if you look at negative stuff, you'll stop being a fan, right? But I'm always looking at the positive stuff. I think this is going to make both players better, right? Competition brings out the best in people. So, the only thing that I ask from Kevin Stefanski to make sure it's a fair competition, right? Just don't give the keys over to Tua. Um, Make sure Michael Penix get his opportunity to prove that he has what it takes to start. If he do that, I think it will be cool, right? I think if you make it a fair competition and Tua Tagovailoa just beat out Michael Penix fair and square, um, that should sit well with everybody, and I hope that's what we get, from Kevin Stefanski, because we all know what kind of transpired last year in Cleveland, where it seems like all the quarterbacks didn't get the chances that they had, um, and it really sucks. So let's see what we got here. Um, Seriously, it's all about the depth this year. Yeah, we talked about that already. We got a comment here. It says, "Love and respect your colors, OG." Yeah, man. I had to bring out the red today, right? All right, this my Big Daddy Kane hat. If you guys know who Big Daddy Kane was back in the '80s, right? Guess I'm telling my age, but Cool Mo D, Big Daddy Kane. You know, the whole. If you guys remember, Big Daddy Kane, was it Big Daddy Kane? Yeah, Big Daddy Kane had a beef with LL Cool J back in the days. LL Cool J wore the Kangos. Probably gotta get me a Kango too. All right, so we can rock the Kangos like LL used to do. But you had Cool Mo D, Big Daddy Kane, LL Cool J, all those guys back in the days. Had they thing going on in the late '80s. So um, um, Tua was looking like he was very happy when he signed with the Falcons. He sure did. He's pumped, man. He probably know because I got the inside track to the starting job here. The other guy hurt, right? That's probably what he's thinking in his head. Says Tua highlights look very good. I thought his arm wasn't good, but I was wrong. He can throw the rock. He is accurate. He does not have the strongest arm in the world, but he is accurate as hell. That's what's one of his traits coming out of college, right? He's one of the most accurate quarterbacks. And you look at the percentage, like I said, 69% completion percentage is really, really good for a quarterback. And he led the completion percentage in 2024. So, like I said, it's a trait that he does have that's already out there. The Falcons are afraid of Michael Penix Jr. injury history, and they wasn't going to put all their cards on one player. They had to bring somebody in, and anyway. But you're right. But you know, Tua has an injury history as well, so that's why they nickname for my nickname for the quarterback room is infirmary. So because both of those guys got injury history. Tua was a better weapon in Atlanta offensively. Case closed. The dude is going to handle his business, barring major injury. Yeah, yeah. I'm not arguing with you on that because you're probably right. Oh, you say LOL. The hat is too small for your big head. Well, I got a lot of hair on my head. I want to show you guys because I'm growing the fro. I'm growing the fro out, so you guys will see the fro when it finishes. Then once I grow the fro, I won't be able to wear hats, man, because my hair be too big. Right? I'm going back to the '70s with the fro, man. I'm going back to the. I don't know if you guys remember a movie came out in 1973. Now I wasn't born then, I ain't that old, but called the Mac, right? When all those guys had you had Pretty Mr. Pretty Tony, you know what I'm saying? Those guys there, and they had the fros. I'm going back to the fros. So eventually, you guys see me. Probably can't rock a hat because my fro will be too big if I had a fro going back old school, right? So that's what you guys going to see. All right, all right. But guys, that's what I pretty much had to say about the quarterback competition. Um, it's going to really, really be interesting to see um, what the Atlanta Falcons how they're going to play this thing out. And guess what? They're going to bring in another quarterback. Question is going to be a younger quarterback coming from the draft, right? That they could develop, right? Because there's some quarterbacks that's going to fall to to you know to the later rounds that might have a lot of upside, right? You listen to one of the things Eddie was talking about is a lot of quarterbacks that might have potential to have a long career in this league, you know, that just didn't get really had a down season last year. That's going to make they draft stock drop, and a little bit development. Some of these guys they might come in and be some shit. So are they going to bring in another veteran guy, that's been in the league, or are they going to wait till they draft a guy from the draft and bring in a third quarterback? I really believe they probably have to bring in a veteran guy, right? They might bring back Easton Stick, right? Um, bring him back to be another camp arm, you know, but they won't wear Tua out because, like I said, Michael Penix won't be able to start off right away. All right, okay. All right, before we get into my last one, talk about James Pierce Jr., you know, the news on him. We're going to talk about some guys that left. Armor Ebiketie is just signed a deal with the Philadelphia Eagles, right? Congratulations to him. Armor Ebiketie just never really lived up to that second round pick that was, that was given to him, right? Never really had more than 5 sacks throughout his time. So, not saying that he's a bust, but he just never really, panned out the way the Atlanta Falcons wanted him to. That's why, he probably didn't get back re-signed with the team. One thing to say about Armor Katie, which is unfair to him, um, he had a different defensive coordinator all 4 years he was here, right? So he never got opportunity to be able to be in a second year in a defense, right? Um, First year he had Dean Pease. Next year he had um, uh, Ryan Nielsen, right? Ryan Nelson. Then he had Jimmy Lake, right? Then he had Jeff Ulbrich. All 4 years he was here, he had a different defensive coordinator. So he never really had opportunity to be able to learn a defense and grow in that defense. Every year he was doing something, different. And maybe they was asking him to, play a different role or something. So he never had opportunity. So, best luck to Armor Ebiketie. Just did not work out for him. But I do think he definitely have the ability to make plays for teams because he did make plays. He didn't make, the whole splashy plays, but he did make plays for Atlanta Falcons while he was here. So he was a quality depth edge rusher for the guys. And, I think they found some replacement. You look at Aziz, right? You look at Ibuakun. I think they're just as good as what we probably would have got from River Katie. Elijah Wilkinson, he it's interesting. He went out with a little noise, right? Guy who started right tackle for the Atlanta Falcons all last season, probably had more penalties than anybody on the whole team. Um, but he went out. A fan said they glad you're gone, and then he came back with good luck with that clown show, and everybody like, you got some nerve, right? You the one probably, like I said, he had the most penalties on the team, but then you go to the Cardinals, they had a worse record than the Atlanta Falcons. So, like, calm down, dude. Right? Wish you the best of luck in Arizona. You're a career backup, player. Even though you right, what you said, well, you bailed the Atlanta Falcons out last year, right? We still didn't make the playoffs, so and some of it could have been because some of your penalties that you got. I'm just hating a little bit, but wish Elijah Wilkins the best of luck, right? And then Javon Gwynn, right? Been to Atlanta Falcons for a while. He was an undrafted free agent for us. Stayed with the practice squad all these years, but he's actually going back to his old offensive line coach and Dwayne Letford up in Baltimore. So best of luck to him as well. Like I said, he probably was the only other center that the Atlanta Falcons had on the team. That's why they bring in Levin. Um, but good luck to Javon Gwynn as well. Hopefully he actually get a roster spot instead of all these practice squad things that he's had to been dealing with. So um, there you go. So all those three guys, we lost those guys. They have not brought back Leonard Floyd either. So we probably losing him as well. So we'll see. Maybe they sign him, right? Back as we don't know, but he's the other only other guy that I think about that the Atlanta Falcons, that played big role for Atlanta Falcons last year. Actually started. He was a starter for the Atlanta Falcons, Leonard Floyd, and probably won't be back. So those three guys are gone, along with the other four guys that we lost. Right. Best of luck to all those guys, except K Nellis. Right. We don't want K. Well, you know what? Let me take it back. K Nellis did good. I hope K Nellis played well, except when he played Atlanta Falcons. So I'm gonna leave it at that. How about that? There you go. T. Terry says Matt Ryan was at Georgia Tech Pro Day, so he probably looking at quarterback. Yeah, man, Haynes King, right? Somebody mentioned that. I think I saw a Twitter on that during the combine. You know that Haynes King could be somebody that can come in. He's a project though, man. I think he like to run the ball too much for me. He's not a quarterback, right? He remind me a little bit of too much of Tim Tebow the way he played, right? He's a baller now. That kid plays hard. He plays hard out, man. I thought I think when he was playing Georgia, man, I thought they was gonna kill that boy. They was hitting him, but he kept running. But they was lighting him up. So that kid's tough as hell, you know. But he would be a project, and yeah, that could be somebody they bring in, somebody that's not they're not worried about trying to compete with Tua and Penix. Somebody definitely knows is going to sit back and learn how to be a professional quarterback in the NFL. Um, it's safe for me to say now, Ebiketie was offered a contract to stay, but he refused to take a lowball offer that felt like he was giving his all for the last few years. I agree with that 100%. Right? If you look at all the contracts that the Atlanta Falcons was offering, let me fix my light, guys. There you go. Looking at all the contracts Atlanta Falcons, they probably did lowballing. So, um, but guess what? Aziz and Abulkan actually took the opportunity to, you know, prove that they can be, guy and get them another long term deal. So, like I said, for what Armor Katie brought to us last year, I think Aziz and Abulkan would just be fine being able to do that. So, you said Floyd. What's the dudes on Floyd? Floyd is definitely not coming back. Yeah, I agree with that. That's not a surprise. Yeah, I think he's done. He's done. He's done. All right, guys, let's get into the last topic of the day. I always wait till last because like I told you guys, for me, this topic is it's getting tiresome. To be honest with you, but keep getting news every day, so you have to keep talking about it. But news came out yesterday that James Pierce Jr. would not be charged for aggravated assault to the police officer, which is really really good news for him, because that could have came with a 5-year sentence, right? Aggravated assault to a police officer. However, he's still charged with 3 felony charges and a misdemeanor, right? Now, I don't know the law, but I think if you look at, you know, all these charges, it could be where he does not, see time, right? Probation, community service, definitely pretty sure he's gonna have to do some anger management training, something like that, and all that stuff. And if that's the case, that means the NFL will levy, whatever punishment they're gonna levy on him, in unison with what the Atlanta Falcons gonna do. And then more than likely, that means his NFL career probably won't be ended. It probably just won't, right? Um, because even though this is a this is a incident, right? And it happened at that one point of time, right? But if you go back and look at this whole situation with these two young people, it's been going on for like 3.5 years, right? So, right, and so when you think about something that long, um, it's probably it was toxic, all the way around, right? It probably was a really really toxic relationship. Um, on both sides, right? So we don't, like I said, we don't know all the details. So, but for something to be going on 3.5 years and probably off and on and this and that, right? But some details about, you know, 911 was called 7 times since November to the February incident, right? So that was noted, right? So 911 has been called 7 times, right? That's crazy, right? In itself, that situation. Um, he offered the young lady $75,000 just to talk to her. Now this is her account of the thing. Like I said, we don't know, but her account was he offered her $75,000 just to talk to her because he wanted to talk to her, and then he offered her $200,000 for her to stay with him. And that was right before the arrest, right? So this is her account of what happened, right? So I'm just telling you what is reported, what's happened. Don't know 100% anything, right? Because all this stuff will sort itself out throughout the courts and things like that. But from the Atlanta Falcons standpoint and from the NFL standpoint, right, they're waiting for this to be resolved before they make any decisions with this young man, right? That's really what it boils down to, right? You can go look at the league's, you know, policy on infractions and things like that, how they would handle it, right? How many games, what they get and stuff like that. I'm not an expert on that. I'm just going to wait. I really don't even care what the time frame would be, right? That between what the Atlanta Falcons would get from the NFL and things like that. What I can say is that, like I said the other day, it's about what um, the fan base is thinking right now, and from what I see from what the fan base thinking, is it's not good for him, right? He would have a lot of, you know, trying to fix his image, amongst the fan base. He really would. So that's one of the things that Atlanta Falcons need to factor in as well. Um, I think one of the smart things to do is start off by getting him in some anger management, trying to fix yourself up, right? It's nobody perfect in this world, right? So when people say that what you do is unforgivable, that's not true, right? You know, if you're a religious person, you forgiven from pretty much everything that you ever did. So you have to look at people giving people second chances. I think for him, he's definitely gonna have to clean this image because, like I said, he has lost a lot, especially with the female part of the fan base. Right, a lot of them want him off the team because of the stuff that's been reported, and for Matt Ryan, for Arthur Blank, the ones that's the head of this organization right now, those guys gonna have to deal with those PR relations and things like that. And the young man himself, right? Um, you can just imagine his first interview. If he does come back and play with NFL, you can just imagine his first interview about this whole situation and things like that. You know, and that's what it's gonna be about, right? I just think that hopefully they can both get this behind them. He can go on his career, she can go on her career, but they got to let the league and the Falcons going to let this play out within the courts and see what happens. And like I said, if he do get, the so-called slap on the wrist, like I said, don't do no jail time. I think his career in the NFL is going to stay. Now the question will the Falcons be willing to take that you know that pure nightmare from the fan base? Like I said, from that one sector of the fan base, that what I'm seeing on social media, that's like, why this guy's still on the team, right? That's what we're hearing, right? So they have to factor that in and how they want to deal with that. Pretty sure they're already working on those things and stuff like that, right? But that's just the facts, right? That's where it's going to boil down to. They're waiting until this get resolved from a legal standpoint. You heard Ian Cunningham talk about he read all the reports just like everybody else. It don't sound good for Michael Penix Jr. from what they have been reading. However, they want to let it play out in the courts, right? Like I said, he got a break yesterday when they reported that he won't be charged for aggravated assault from the cop, which was the biggest charge that was there. So now you have to see how everything else plays out for this young man. And like I said, man, everybody deserves a second chance in life, right? Nobody's perfect, and if if he did half of this stuff, he definitely needs some help though, right? He needs some help, man, because like I said, crashing out, I mean, even trying to pay this young lady to talk to you is kind of kind of stalkish a little bit, right? Damn, man, let it go, bro. Right? I don't like that. I don't like that part about it. Trying to pay her just to talk to her, because it seemed like I ain't letting you go. You know what I'm saying? I even pay for your love. Like that's kind of too that's kind of too toxic, man. Like you don't need to pay nobody to be with you. Don't do that. But that don't mean that means like it's like forced. So I think you should have just let it go. You know, both of them just go their separate ways. They gonna probably live really great lives, and just end the relationship where it is. Right? We know she put a protective order out on him, as well, and I think he can't be within 500 feet of her, and can't be within 100 feet of her car. So, right, they shouldn't have no communication, no contact, and let's see can I get this thing behind him. But until this is, is decided in courts, you probably won't hear so much from the Atlanta Falcons about it, right? Because one thing we do know, right, what he was able to do on the football field is the only reason he's not off the team. If it had been a special team player or kicker or punter, he would have been gone, right? But this guy is one of the premium positions in the NFL. Somebody that can get after the quarterback, and he was really, really good at it. And that's the reason why the Atlanta Falcons is quiet about it, and they trying to get this young man a second chance. That just really, really boils down to, guys, right? I think one of the things that Shannon Sharp said that they will they will tolerate you more when you can do more. That's pretty much what it is. I kind of paraphrase what he said, but yes, the more you can do, the more you can help them, the more they'll tolerate, right? And that's just the facts. That's the facts on everything, right? If you, I mean, and I don't like to get into politics, but you look at some people that get away with a lot of stuff, right? And you're like, man, how the hell they get away with that? Because of the position you in, right? Like James Pierce Jr. is in a better position than a lot of other people that probably do something like this because of what he's able to do, you know, from a monetary standpoint, things how he can do to help the team. And that's just a fact, right? I'm just being honest about it. And that's where it stands, right? I gave my opinions on it. Like I said, personally, if he did some of this stuff, the kid need help, man. He really do. Some of this stuff that was reported, it is kind of disturbing a little bit because damn, right? But he's young, he make mistakes, and hopefully, you know, it's something that he can move on from and learn from instead of, you know, going down the wrong road. So we'll see. We'll definitely see. Um, let's get into the comments here. He says, "Hey man, my guy Jan Pierce Jr. This is a slap on the wrist. Those cop charges are presumed that they're either getting downgraded or possibly dropped altogether. Yeah, that's like I said. I'm not 100% sure what they're gonna do, with those charges, but I don't think they're gonna be that serious. To be honest with you, James Pierce Jr. is just a young man who was in love with a he said with a ghetto hoe. You can say that all you want. They talked for 3 years. He didn't look at her that way. That sounded like it was the love of his life, and she didn't want her no more. He couldn't take it. Right? He was able to think about it. He was gonna pay her $275,000 just to stay with her. So it was his love, man. But he didn't get charged for none of the crap that she stated. Here says that the public media trying not to use my criminal justice. That is where he goes. Won't you be his lawyer then to get him off? um, that's from his lawyer in previous comments. Okay, like I said, I'm gonna let it play out. I don't really care about legal stuff, man. To be honest with you, I just want to know the outcome, and then what the NFL and the Falcons going to do, and then we can go from there, right? Because I don't want to get into the back and forth what they said and what happened, whatever. Because the system is going to take it, do what it does, and then from there, you just have to deal with the decision, what it was, either way, and then what the NFL is going to do, what the Atlanta Falcons is going to do, and will he be part of his 2026 Atlanta Falcon roster? That's all we're thinking about. He says basically Miss Jackson was acting like a high school price woman of the night. Okay, okay. Like I said, I don't know what she acts like. I don't know nothing about none of that stuff, right? But even if she was acting like that, doesn't matter him to crashing out the way he did, man. Right? But think about it. Just end it, bro. Let it go. Just let it go. We won't even have this conversation. Think about this. 2 days before this happened, right? On national TV and NFL owners, this young man moms get up and talk about how good of a man he is. And she's so proud of him and all this stuff. And then 2 days later, he's offering a girl $200,000 to stay with him and hitting her car. Like, what in the world was he thinking, man? I'm just saying. I know he's in love. I get it. I'm not. I get it, man. But damn, like you embarrass your mom, man, because not everybody know who you are. Because national, like if people wasn't even following the Falcons, let's put it like this: if the normal casual people that just worry about their team and stuff like this, but national TV and NFL owners, his mom get up and talk about him and how proud she is of him and all this stuff. And then 2 days later, he in the news for this. Like that is just damn, man. Like I said, young people do stupid stuff, and that was just dumb, right? I don't care about the situation. That was dumb. That was really dumb, man. And now we're in this situation. So however it pans out, whatever happens, we'll just wait and see. But that was dumb. It really was dumb. Um, the team and brass behind him 100%. And that's the case, though. That means we just wait on what the NFL does then, because it seems like the team behind him. We'll see what the NFL does, because he's going to get punished. We do know that. I'm glad to see you supporters are on James Perry Jr.'s side after he only got charged with stalking misdemeanor. I don't know what supporter you were talking about. Supporters just on my timeline right now, because most of the supporters like get this dude off the team. I'm just being honest with you. Most of the reporters is about get this dude off my team because of what they're reading, right? Like I said, when all the facts come out, that's different. I can tell you this much, right? Nowadays, you're guilty until proven innocent. That's the way. That's just the way it is. Ever since the whole Me Too movement and all that kind of stuff, man, because it's just so much more, news that comes out before you can see all this stuff. You can get all the details and stuff like this, but based off the details that most people reading, it looks like this guy was a danger to her. That's what it looks like, right? Um, and you can believe it or not believe, but that's what it looks like. So, um, from what I read, most people don't want James Pierce Jr. on the Atlanta Falcons no more. They don't give a fuck about those 10.5 sacks. That's just what I. That's what I. Most what I say. They don't care about them 10.5 sacks. And they don't. I'm just being honest with you. But it don't matter because if he is cleared through the legal process, the Atlanta Falcons gonna feel justified to keep those 10.5 sacks on their squad. That's what is gonna happen. So, and that's what it really boils down to. You fool, yo. Um, Ricondo, a lot of young couples like that drama stuff. Oh hell yeah, man. Yeah, this ain't this. Trust me, this not the first toxic shit going on. I mean, you go back a couple of years ago, Ray Rice, the whole Ray Rice incident, him and his wife used to fight all the time. He just got caught on camera giving her one hit Aquila, right? And it looked really bad, right? But it was it was normal for them to be fighting, going back and forth. But she probably hit him a couple of times too, right? In other fights, that one we got on camera where I mean he knocked her out, right? I know you guys remember that, and then he drug her out the elevator, right? But that was caught on camera. But they was toxic, right? They used to fight all the time, you know. One thing about domestic disputes, man, and this is from dealing with a lot of young people throughout my career. Um, Alcohol and moments can ruin you, right? Especially if alcohol related, that's not good. And then crash out moments, right? That's the new term, crash out. But the young man had a crash out moment, right? He really did, man. Damn, dude, like it was over, and he just didn't want to accept it was over, right? When she started driving to the police station, she should let it go, but he didn't want to let it go. He just didn't want to let it go. Oh, he said that chick wanted more money. He had been spoiling her big time. Said, if he wanted more money, why she didn't take 200 grand to stay with him? She could have used that 200 grand. See, your logic not lining up. He offered 75,000. He offered 200. She didn't want it, so she was going to the police station. So obviously she didn't want any more money. She wanted to end it. The money was good for a while lasted, but she was like, "I'm tired of this shit. I'm ready to end it." Same picture. We be at Miss Jackson in a couple of years, probably married. Not until she get that protective order lifted. That would be crazy though. You ain't lying. If they get back together, that would be freaking insane. Like all that shit for nothing. Uh, he says he did get charged with for all that. Said okay, that ain't what was reported. I can go back and I can pull up an article right now and say he was charged with 3 felonies and a misdemeanor. That's what were just reported today. So unless you got another report that you can dispel what that said, because that was reported today. That he got reported with 3 felonies and a misdemeanor. So you saying he did not get charged? He did not get charged. We do know he did not get charged with a police incident, but it said he still was charged with 3 felonies and a misdemeanor. And he said that was before all that. Yeah, that was actually the $200,000 was. They said hours before the whole incident happened, hours before he got arrested. So he tried to he tried to pay $200,000 that day of the incident. That's what was reported. So, like I said, this is I ain't making none of this up because I don't know what the hell going on. But I'm just reading what I read. Right, the reported was hours before the arrest, he offered her 200K to stay with her. So, and she was like, I don't want no more money. I don't want no more money, man. I'm good. You know what I'm saying? He only got charged for stalking her. The 3 felony charges were the cop issues. I'm just telling you what I read. It says one charge got dropped. He got charged with 3 felonies, and one was aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, which is his car. That did not get dropped. The stalking did not get dropped, and it was a third one. I don't know what the other third one was, but hitting her with his car was an assault with a deadly weapon. That did not get dropped. That did not get dropped. That's what I'm reading, right? If it did get dropped, that had nothing to do with the cops. That had something to do with him hitting her car. That had nothing to do with the cops. That had something with him hitting her car. That's what we reported. So that's what I'm saying. So I don't know, right? At the end of the day, I really don't care. To be honest with you, right? I just want to know what the outcome be, and then we could move on with this because we Atlanta Falcons do not need dark clouds over our head. I mean, think about it. We signed Kirk Cousins 2 years ago, and then he blabber. that we talked to him before, the whole new league year. Then they take a draft pick from us, right? Like we we got charged with pumping noise into the stadium. Um, right? We always got some shit going on. We had to get rid of our coach this year that we just had hired because he had a rape charge. Right? We tired of all this dark cloud stuff over us, man. We want to see some good news. So hopefully this is be over with soon. We don't have to worry about this no more, and we can talk about something else, right? And whatever his punishment be with the league, take your time, do your anger management class, whatever you got to do, you know, heal your heart because obviously you had a broken heart because you crashed out the way you did, and go ahead and come back and pick up where you left off, brother. That's what we hope happens, right? Um, Rick Jackson had moved on with it looked like she with Jack Harlow, right? We'll see, right? Nobody care about her love life though. Nobody cares about that. Well, there you have it, guys. I thought the end off this week. I thought the Atlanta Falcons actually did improve. Right, it doesn't seem that way because they didn't go out and get the splashy, splashy signings. Like you go look at, one of our teams in our division, like the Carolina Panthers. They made two splashy, signings, right? And everybody's like, man, they got better, but you know, those guys gonna be starters. But they only added two guys. The Atlanta Falcons added 13 guys, right? So just along with the depth they added, right? They added more bodies to. They went for quantity instead of all that quality, right? The quality of the two guys that the Panthers got, which is going to be really good, right? I'm kind of scared of that team, right? Ain't gonna lie to you, right? Especially they don't beat us the last three times they played us, right? Definitely got better, but the Atlanta Falcons decided to go for quantity instead of quality, right? They created depth, right? And they're not done, right? They based off the moves they made, they can actually add even more bodies to this roster, to include the draft class and the undrafted free agents, right? So the Atlanta Falcons got a lot more, you know, um, means to add to this roster to make this team better, to go along with the young nucleus that the Atlanta Falcons already have, right? Um, I think the quarterback competition is going to be really, really good for this team, right? It's going to bring out the best in both of those guys. I think that's going to be huge for this team, right? And I also believe that you know Kevin Stefanski, being able to utilize his tight end packages that he's going to use with Kyle Pitts, Austin Hooper, um, Charlie Warner is still on this team as well, who was really, really big, as a blocking tight end for the Atlanta Falcons, right? I think that the ceiling for this team it should be higher, right, than it was last year, based off the moves that have been made, based off what we believe Kevin Stefanski, offensive scheme is going to bring to the table, right? So all these things that when I think about the Atlanta Falcons um, being a better team this year, um, I feel good about it, right? But with that being said, they're not even done yet, right? It's nowhere near a finished product of what this team is going to be, and that's what's you know so uplifting about this moment right now. We just got to see what else they do, right? Um, Atlanta Falcons could have brought in like four guys, with all the money they spent, and we probably would have felt, good about some of those moves as well because they would have been big name guys. But this strategy is different, and this the way they're going about it. Um, but just like Ian Cunningham said, it raises the floor, right? Because you got to remember the Atlanta Falcons wasn't that far, right? So if it raises the floor just a little bit, right, that might put us over the hump to get into the postseason. And once you get in the postseason, you never know what's going to happen. So that's what I really like about this. Take this last comment right here. It says, Ricondo, what you about Kyler Murray signing with the Minnesota Vikings? Um, I do believe that, after listening to Kyler Murray, I think that's probably what his first choice, right? Um, and I think that the Minnesota Vikings got a chance to be really, really good next year with Kyler Murray. I do, right? But I can tell Kyler Murray this. I think the Atlanta Falcons had more weapons on the offense side of the ball than the Minnesota Vikings did. You got Justin Jefferson, you got Addison, but that's all you got, right? You got Hawkinson, I guess, right? And you got Aaron Jones, but I like the Atlanta Falcon nucleus better. Actually, I believe Atlanta Falcon offensive line is better, right? So we'll see. We'll see. Which one of these quarterbacks that the other team is paying all their salary, you know, and Tua and Kyler Murray. Let's see which one of these guys have the better seasons, right? Um, where two franchise quarterback got released, and team was able to pick them up for minimum deals, and that could to resurrect their careers with two different teams. So we'll see what happens, right? That's what I think. All right, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in today. I think we covered a lot. Um, Once we get more, we'll definitely come back. We got to start talking about some of the draft class. I haven't talked about that because free agency been so heavy right now. It's starting to die down. Still think Atlanta Falcons will add a couple more guys to the table. If they do, I come out with a quick video about it, just highlighting those additions to those players, what it means for Atlanta Falcons, and then we're going to start getting to the draft class, guys. We got a lot to talk about. Um, we see what the Atlanta Falcons able to do, and I think the beauty of this free agency is the fact that the Atlanta Falcons didn't really, you know, completely fix any of their needs, right? They got pieces in those needs, but I still think if they add in the draft to any of those positions, it'll be justified to be able to do that, right? Because what they add to be more long term situation than the guys that they brought in. So, the sky's the limit for Atlanta Falcons. And if they don't add to those needs, right, they feel comfortable with some of the guys they brought in because of the depth they got at those positions. So it's a win-win in that fact that they still got needs. They could utilize those needs in the draft, but if they don't, they go in another direction, that'll be okay too because of the depth that they have created during this free agency. So that's what I got. Thank you guys for tuning in today. Um, this is your boy Ricondo. Come back at you with another video. Peace.